Welcome to my channel Equine Feather US. My name is Katie and I'm an Equine Assisted Learning instructor out here at Barnard Equine in Gilbert, Arizona. So today I want to answer your questions about what exactly Equine Assisted Learning is, who can teach it, and who does it benefit. So according to Path International, who by the way is kind of the authority behind Equine Assisted Learning, is they define it as an experiential learning experience that helps build life skills, which is assisted by a horse or an equine. I didn't get that definition like word for word what they have, but I'll insert their exact definition into this video. So essentially, equine assisted learning is an experience with a horse that helps build life skills, which I know that is very broad and general, which we can actually use to our advantage, because that means that we can fit in a lot of clients from various ages, various backgrounds, and they can all benefit from the same thing. So I personally like to structure my equine assisted learning sessions based on helping the client build a connection with themselves and with the horse. And then the horse and the client can work with each other to help build that connection. And it's a really beautiful thing, and I really enjoy facilitating these sessions. However, since starting equine assisted learning, and I'll refer to it as EAL from here on out, I've realized that there's a lot of mystery behind it. Like it's a fairly new term, like it's been around for a while, but I think the term equine assisted learning is kind of this new buzzword and people aren't really sure what happens, and a lot of people think that it's horse therapy even though it's not, and I'm just here to answer all of these questions and to create a clear picture of what an EAL session is and what it could look like. So what equine assisted learning is it's actually not therapy. Because I'm not a licensed therapist, I cannot advertise it as a therapy session. Typically speaking, most EAL instructors are not also therapists. I'm sure some are. Most of the ones that I know did not go to college and are not technically a therapist. So there's a lot of confusion, or I guess assumptions that EAL is horse therapy, and while horses are therapeutic, it's technically not horse therapy. So like I said earlier, what it is it's an experience with the horses. And so even though it's not therapy, I do kind of like to compare it to life coaching, because I can follow a similar structure to what a life coach would follow, meaning that I can ask my clients thought-provoking questions. I can ask questions about their mental health, I can ask questions about their life, etc. And I can guide the conversation down a certain path that I want it to go down, because if there's a certain issue that a client's working on, it's up to me to guide that conversation in an appropriate way that will address this client's needs. And so if a client comes to me and they let me know that they're being harmed at home or they want to harm themselves, then I do have to proceed with that information the same way a therapist or any other professional would proceed with it. In that case, I would have to disclose that information and go forward with it from there. But on the flip side, if a client comes up to me and they start talking about a conversation that I'm not comfortable dealing with, or that I feel like I don't have the right training to help them with, then I can say something along the lines of, thank you so much for sharing with that. I appreciate that you trusted me with that information. However, I think that you need to go talk to your therapist, or you need to go talk to your doctor, because they'll be able to help you in a better way than I can, because they have more training. I would hope in a session I'd be able to word it a little bit more smoothly than that, but you get the big picture here. In an equine assisted learning session, there can be all sorts of different topics of conversation between me and the client, but ultimately it's up to me to guide it where I want it to go and to cut it off in a polite way if I feel like I'm not trained to handle that type of conversation. So then the next question is, who would benefit from EAL? At Barnard Equine, our tagline is that people of all ages and abilities can experience horses. And that's what EAL is too. There's no cutoff, there's no specific guideline of like only young teenage females struggling with anxiety can be in this program. It's not like that. It's anyone who needs help building a connection, anyone who needs help building a relationship, anything like that. Anyone who needs help in general can benefit from equine assisted learning. I really do think that pretty much anybody would benefit from EAL just because horses are so healing and so amazing to work with. And so that kind of leads me into the next question that a lot of people have, which is, how do horses help people? How do horses teach people? And that's a really good question, especially for people who don't necessarily have any background or any experience with horses. There's a quote that says, "Horses teach us a lot. Very little of it has to actually do with horses." And that's kind of the philosophy that I like to follow with my EAL sessions, is that the horses are teaching the clients, but very rarely does it have to do with like the horse itself. A lot of times horses teach clients, like I keep saying, how to find a connection. It teaches a lot of my younger clients how to pay attention for an extended period of time, because the way I structure my sessions, if the client is not paying attention to what's happening, then we're not going to progress in the session. And so that's a really good tool for me to use for people who might have attention disorders. Horses communicate via body language. And so this is actually really great news, especially for clients who have experienced trauma, because a lot of people with a background in trauma have experienced a moment where they kind of split from their body, and then it's really difficult for them to come back and to feel their feelings and to feel their body and to feel everything that's happening. And so when a client like that works with a horse, what they're able to do is they're able to observe the horse, they're able to watch the horse. I like them to read the horse's body language and then relate it back to their own. So with my newer clients, one of the very first things I teach them when we start working with the horse is how to read their body language. Because if you know anything about horses, you know that they talk without saying a word, especially just the way that they move their ears, how they, the energy behind their eyes and their movement. There's a lot of energy going back and forth between client and horse and client. And so to be able to get a person to read that and translate it in the correct way is huge, because when a client understands the horse's body language, they can start understanding their own body as well, both their physical and emotional body. Another way horses teach people, or another thing that they teach that's really important, is that they teach people how to stay present. And that is so important. I've seen it so often. I get, especially with my younger clients, is that they get here and they're off of their phones and their tablets, and they have to focus for 45 minutes to an hour on one thing, and that is so hard. So for example, this actually just happened recently. I was teaching a younger child, I was doing a session in the round pen, and I was having him lunge the horse. And so I asked him to get the horse to go from a walk to a trot, right? And so I'm like, all right, get this horse to trot, and I already taught him how to do that. And so what he did is he said, okay, and then he got distracted. He started looking at the dirt, kicking in the dirt, playing around with the lunge whip. So I let that happen for a moment, and then I was like, hey, I asked you to get the horse to trot. What happened? And he was like, oh yeah, you did ask me to get the horse to trot. And then he looked up and he paid attention and he got the horse to trot. But having those moments of like asking the kid to do something and then having to remind them that you just asked them to do something, it gets their brain kind of churning, it gets it working, and it gets them to pay attention. That's just a small example. But yeah, I just wanted to share that example to give you an idea of how this works, how horses teach people. So even though it's me using the words, it's the horse showing the client that when he pays attention, or when she pays attention and puts an effort and work towards getting this horse to trot, then that's when the trot happens. And it's really beautiful to experience moments like this. So one final note on how horses are really good teachers for both the client and for me sometimes is a lot of times I'll ask the client how the horse is feeling. And so when I ask the client how the horse is feeling and they give me an answer like, oh, well, the horse is feeling really sad. I think it could use a few more friends. If I get an answer like that, then it's very clear to me that the client is projecting onto the horse. And that's really good for me because I can grab that piece of information and use it throughout the session. So that's really cool because horses oftentimes make people feel comfortable and safe enough to project and to open up about their own feelings. So I really like to use that to our advantage throughout the session. So those are just a few examples of how horses help teach people and how I facilitate the session. Now, I know a lot of people are wondering, what does an EAL session look like? What's actually happening besides a conversation between me and the client like brushing the horse? So I'll just say typically I structure my sessions like this. The client arrives, I greet, I say hi, we pick a horse, and then I have them lead the horse over to our wash stall and they groom the horse. Now typically while they're grooming, that's when I like to get a lot of the conversation started. I just start the conversation like I would any other conversation, just asking about kind of surface level things like school, how their day went, how they're feeling, that kind of stuff. And then based on that first conversation, I'll kind of dive deeper as I find I need to. So after this, I'll have the client lead their horse into the round pen, and this is where the bulk of my sessions typically occur, is in the round pen, because I'll bring out a lunge whip and I'll teach the client how to lunge the horse. And this is my favorite thing to use in EAL sessions because it makes the client pay attention. I can easily teach body language while lunging, and then it's really rewarding for the client to be able to communicate and connect with the horse and eventually get the horse to slow down and come greet them in the middle. Usually when they drop the whip, tell the horse whoa, and it walks up and nuzzles them, that's a really special moment. But up until that moment, the client is learning about body language, like I just said. They're changing directions, they're reading the horse, they're reading themselves, and there's a lot going on. And one thing that I do a lot too is I'll ask the client to either bring their energy up and make the horse go faster, get the horse excited, and then I'll teach them to bring the energy down, get the horse to slow down and think through their movements, and eventually walk calmly to the middle and greet the client there. And that's really good for the clients to experience the rise up and come down of emotions and energy. And it's really important too for a lot of people to understand that they can manipulate energy themselves. Like, it's not always coming from an outside source, it's actually coming from them. And the horse is a mirror, a reflection of that. And so that's how I like to structure my sessions. And then after all the after all of the round pen work is done, if there's time, I'll have them take the horse for a walk, and then I'll ask them how the session went. Like, what did you learn? What do you think happened? How did this compare to last week? All of those good questions. And then I'll have them brush the horse off again and put the horse away. And that's what a session with me typically looks like. And with that being said, I've actually had quite a few sessions where the whole session is just brushing the horse and talking about their stuff, whatever it is. Sometimes that can be just as helpful as doing any of the other work with horses, is just having the horse there, having a brush in the hand, and having someone to listen to you. Sometimes that's all people need. It doesn't have to be complicated. So I hope that answers some of your questions about equine assisted learning, what it looks like, who does it, all that good stuff. So I really appreciate that you guys watched this video. I hope that you learned a few things about equine assisted learning. And with all of that being said, I do want to mention that I'm turning 23 this month, which is pretty epic if I do say so myself. But I'm actually putting together a fundraiser to help me become an equine specialist in mental health learning, which is just a fancy way of saying an equine assisted learning instructor. So I am choosing to go through Path International. I mentioned them in the very beginning of this video. I've been practicing equine assisted learning for well over 6 months. There's no regulations behind it. You don't have to go to school and you don't have to have anything to be qualified to teach it. However, I do want to start getting legitimate qualifications under my belt because I think it's really important to have something to stand upon, and it's really important for my clients too for me to have the best level of education that I can have. Now, PATH is a really well-respected organization, and I'm really excited to get my ESMHL certification through them. And all I'm asking is that you help contribute to this fundraiser so that I can go fly out and get my certification so that I can continue helping people help themselves through equine assisted learning. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you have any other questions or comments, leave it in the comment section below. And yeah, I'll be making a lot more videos on this topic, a lot more detailed, and I'll be answering all of the questions. So stick around for that, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!